Wow, we're live really quickly. I didn't even get myself ready. I think we're good with audio. Audio check. It looks pretty good on my end. Um, I was just reading this book on a couple of channels. I want to leave it actually in the picture, but we don't really have the resources to do those visuals. My background is more technical, so I usually like to concentrate on those kind of things. But at the moment, I'm trying to be a little bit more liberal artsy. I mean, actually, my degree is liberal arts. Not quite. Bachelor's of Arts. I don't really pay attention to those details. Um, but once again, I'm doing more of the overall look of this, and I would like to add something on this. Usually, I would like to add something on the screen, but that's not something that we have available. So, I kind of showed what the book looks like. I could write it in text. Um, but I might just continue to read this, but I just want to go with the overall concept so I put myself in my own place, which means um, just what I'm thinking about. And we're listening to the news. It talked about the weather. This is the first day of fall, so we welcome the autumn, and we had a Indian summer. Well, it was a pretty warm year throughout, and winter is coming. But Game of Thrones may not be on. So, just a few news as I remember, a couple of things that came up. I was at the Queen's Museum where a lot of people visit um, the globe and they kind of walk around the area. I usually hang out in that area in Queens. And as I was entering the building, which is pretty accommodating, I realized that the Game of Thrones, a lot of people are kind of shocked that Game of Thrones is not having a season, I believe, this year. Who knows what that means, but right now, as we read a little bit, tune into a little entertainment. It's about 6 o'clock. One of the TV shows, just to mention, that I like to watch is Person of Interest. And I just realized that, I realized through a video archive, a highlighted trending video via one of the sources that I was looking at, which happened to be YouTube on my Apple device. What I found out was that I'll flip this really quickly. Ooh, that was not the flip. So the show that I kind of like to watch, I realize right now that the one of the actors was doing oddly enough. Let me mute the TV, but it's easy for me to talk because of what they talk about on the TV. And there's a guy interviewing another guy. One of them is probably, it seems like a Christian television because I usually listen to these networks. I used to listen to a lot of these networks. Now I kind of just catch on with a few events that are coming up in our area. And since I'm mentioning stuff, since things are coming along, tonight is a conference in Los Angeles, which I'm going to try to follow as well. But at the particular conference I'm talking about, there's two characters, and I think my YouTube archive brought me to this video because I've been listening to Liberty University, who has a lot of the famous speakers that are speaking tonight, like David Wilkinson, I believe. Not the pastor of the very well-known Times Square Church, but of a pastor of a very millennial type of group. Either case, two interviews, two people having a conversation on video, creating a very nice particular scene where it's just about the two people going back and forth, speaking life, about their lives. The actor which I'm talking about, I just see him as a regular guy as a believer himself, as somebody who's gone through certain things, who's talked about him himself. He was introduced as the actor from Passion of the Christ. And I'm trying to remember, I don't really know a lot about the actor when I saw the movie. He comes up, he looks very clean cut. He looks familiar, but not quite familiar, so I assume certain guys, certain, people well cut look similar. And just to give the background info on the guy who I was listening to this conversation, the guy who's having this conversation, and so it turns out that he has a pretty interesting relationship with God, it seems, and him and his wife went through, they went through their general living arrangements now, meaning that they have 2 kids and they live in a certain area, and they were, getting to know each other, you know, as the stage was set for this conversation. And so the conversation goes at, I like how he's explaining, how God is speaking as he became an actor and then as he developed into the role in the Passion movie that I watched myself. And it just so happens, as I looked it up a little bit more, because since I didn't know that he was the actor who was a believer, I didn't quite get that before. But as he's speaking, I kind of agree in what he's saying. And part of me was like, oh, let me look it up, make sure he's not making it up. But because of the natural conversation, it was natural enough that it wasn't fake. And well, it's interesting. That's an interesting note, but at least what I found out was kind of cool too. That one of the shows that I watch, he's an actor, and there was a period that I think that God kind of, if you believe it, God really marked him during that role. So he had an experience what it meant to be a follower. Not only is that, but what the suffering that, it seems like his suffering kind of went in line with Jesus' suffering, which some people don't even believe that a Christian life has, rejection and suffering and even health issues. And he had to go through the actor himself had to go through a lot of these stages as he was putting up the scene for the crucifixion. And it's interesting what he said in the interview, but I didn't finish listening to it. I just wanted to get some of the background information. So I just think it's interesting just as well that now when I see him, I would recognize him a little bit more as a believer. And I'll finish the interview later. I thought of a couple of things. But, supposedly now I just want to continue in something that's meaningful for me, which is to finish this book by Elaine. And just be it, I don't know what that was. That was a ding, right? Usually that means that, young, whatever. So, we live in a distracted place, but I don't mind it. It's about 6 o'clock. We have the news on. And we're in chapter 4. That was about 10 minutes. 10 minutes is usually what you give to an intro. I don't have enough light. because, well, daylight savings, not yet. We'll see what we can do. I might be able to pull this up on the camera and give me a little more light, but people like to read books. I don't particularly. This should be a little bit better though. So I'm about to start. We're looking a little bit at a, low angle, or looking up, and our view is kind of stationary, which is kind of cool. Everything else is standard with a little bit of add-ons, and this is our setup for. Check out this. The very fear of exposing oneself to the distress. Okay, I remember this. This is about I should actually explain what this was about, but I just want to get into it, and hopefully somebody can catch on. The very fear of exposing, oh my gosh. To the distress one experiences from anxiety in social situations makes it hard to seek assistance from others. In general, people with social phobia have to overcome this hurdle before obtaining treatment. Under the conditions of this new job, she realized her fear would jeopardize her ability to perform if she does not get help. After listening to the pastor's advice, she may choose to seek help. She may ignore his suggestions, or, So if she indeed has the social phobia, in other words, the problem persists to the point she may carry her responsibility, then the wisest approach is to obtain professional help. Supportive advice from one's own experience as a Christian may begin to help others find answers to their problem. Felicia's pastor did this very well. However, there are subtle barriers to providing shouldn't it be empathetic? Providing empathic advice. A major but subtle obstacle is the stigma of having a psychological problem, which renders the sufferer unwilling to I don't feel like. I'm not in the mood for finishing this, and it is getting dark, so it's hard to see it. But I'll finish this. But which renders the sufferer unwilling to complain, and those who've gone through the experience unwilling to share. It took courage for the pastor to reveal he had a problem that required psychological help. He had to overcome his sense of imperfection and the stigma of how he might be viewed by his peers. I once presented this character Felicia at a Christian conference. So the author, Elaine, who I know. Okay. The audience reacted vehemently to her diagnosis of social phobia, stating, "There's nothing wrong with her. She is absolutely normal." I replied, "That's exactly right. She is normal." What do they mean by the word normal? Doesn't mean that Felicia is normal, because if they were in the same position, they would be just as anxious. In other words, rather than saying she is normal, they say she is only being human. Did they mean that her reaction is not common and would be expected to happen to others in the same circumstance? Did they mean that social phobia is a statistically common condition? I gotta walk away because it's getting too dark. But I pretty much finished the part that I wanted to. I'll probably try to read quicker on my own, so